Good. I'm trying to think. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 6 o'clock. Time to begin our July the 18th meeting. We'll call ourselves to order. The first thing on the agenda is the future U.S. Army soldiers. Captain Logo is with us tonight. Captain Logo, thank you for coming. I'll let you introduce your sergeant if you will.
Of course. My name is Captain Monroe. I'm with the Charlotte Recruiting Company. I approached the mayor here to see if he wouldn't mind recognizing some of your very own here from Monroe, who are enlisting in the United States Army, and most of them are shipping off basic training this summer, and a couple of them are shipping off next summer. So this is their NCO, Sergeant Dowdy.
Hi. So my name is Sergeant Dowdy. I'm the future soldier leader for the Monroe Recruiting Center. I want to thank the mayor and the city council for having us out this evening. This is a big step for most of these young men and women stepping up to serve their country. They're going to be part of 1% to do so that will step up and serve, and that's across the military. So for them to step up and say that they're willing to do this, it's a great honor to bring them out here and have them recognized in front of you guys tonight.
And I, speaking for the council, of course, I would ask them to speak for themselves also, but I would just like to say thank you all for coming tonight and being with us and allowing us to say thank you to you. Many of you, probably all of you, just coming out of high school or whatever the career you may have and embarking on a new career, U.S. Army. And we want you to know that we appreciate what you do. We want you to know the community backs you. Not only the community, but our nation back you. And you going on to further and keep our country safe. Many of you will make a career out of this. Many of you will go on and become officers, I'm sure, or whatever the destination may be. But I know you will do well, and I want to say thank you for that. But as you folks go forward, we've had some folks that's already been there and protected our nation, and that's why we're sitting here tonight, recognizing you folks, and I can sit here and speak freely. And many of you who in the audience who have served in the military, that we can be free. In fact, we have one on the council, I believe, Mr. Billy Jordan served. Billy, thank you for your service. And we want to thank you again for your service. If I call out your name, I want you to please, if you will, come up front, and if you will, face the audience. I'd like to call your name out at this time. Elisa Johnson. Samuel Boger. Logan Fulton. Gigi Rodriguez. Jordan Day. Sheldon Aberry. Adam Muir. Stephen Gonzalez. Nicholas Salas. And we have two who will be shipping out next summer, which is 14 months. Delaney Dean and Logan Turner. Again, we thank you, and you will be receiving some certificates tonight, signed by me and the captain. And again, we want to thank you. At this time, I'd like to give you a little token, a city badge. If you'd like, maybe I hope you will take that with you folks and keep it and remember us. Just a little something to say thank you for being here. How about the parents? The parents here? Would you please stand? Thank you again for your folks, what you're going to do now, and what you're going to do in the future to protect our nation. And I know that you'll be great soldiers and be a great contribution to the U.S.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
if it would not be too much trouble or take up too much time, I'd like to hear where these young folks graduated from school and what branch of service they're going to be going into.
I think it'd be a great idea if you folks would share that with us. We appreciate it.
I'll have you guys just say, where you're from and then your MOS where you're going to be going. And make sure you say what it's called.
I'm Jordan Day. I graduated from Bible Baptist in Matthews. I will be a 68 Whiskey, which is a combat medic. So I'll be not only working with soldiers, but also some of the people over in the other countries, like the children with widows there.
I'm Jerry Rodriguez. I graduated from Lancaster High School. My MOS is 19 Delta, which is a cavalry scout.
My name is Logan Fulton. I graduated here from Central Academy of Technology and Arts here in Monroe. I'm going to be a 25 November, which is a nodal network operator maintainer, maintaining the Army's infrastructure.
My name is Sammy Loger. I graduated from Fremont High School. I'm going to be doing 911 Active Allied Trade Specialist. I still machinery and welding.
My name is Elisha Johnson. I graduated from Sun Valley High School. My MOS is 88 Mike, Motor Transport Operator.
My name is Logan Turner. I'm still currently attending Central Academy of Technology and Arts. My MOS is 91 Alpha, which is a tank maintainer.
I am Sheldon Maybear. I also graduated from Piedmont. I will be a 12 Bravo come August, and I will be serving as a combat engineer.
My name is Adam Maurer. I graduated at North Run High School. I'll be a 68 X-ray, which is a behavioral health specialist.
My name is Stephen Gonzalez. I graduated at UNC Charlotte last summer, and my MOS is 15 Whiskey, which is a UAS operator.
My name is Nicholas Salas. I'll be serving as an 88 Mike and Transport Operator as well.
Yeah, have to come by, let's shake your hand.
Y'all come by and we're going to shake your hand. There you go.
I'm sorry.
You may call him here.
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Y'all just go on and start the line down there and come around. How would that be?
Congratulations. Good luck.
Mayor, and I'd like for these young men and the young ladies to know that our city manager has had military experience, retired, and also we've got our airport director.
Congratulations. I'm glad you said it, Mr. Jordan. I didn't mean to overlook him. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you for your service.
Congratulations.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your willingness to serve.
Congratulations, brother. Thank you. Appreciate the job you're going to do. Good luck to you. Thank you so much.
I'd also like to say our city manager served in the U.S. Army and was a full colonel. And I didn't mean to overlook you, I'll just didn't do it. But anyway, thank you for your service.
And also our, we have our airport director.
Airport director.
And what about our mayor?
Airport.
And what about our mayor? He served also.
Yeah, a little bit.
He served also. Give him a hand.
I got out, I wanted to be a general, and they decided I wasn't fitted, so I
So you got
just a little humor.
For the support, and we'll see you at 4:00.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
Item 2 is a proclamation supporting HB Marcy's Law. At this time, I'll recognize Matthew Hebb, please. Matthew, if you would tell us a little bit about Marcy's Law.
Absolutely. Wow, this thing actually amplifies your voice just standing here. That's really handy. Marcy's Law, HB 551, Senate Bill 595, is a victims' rights legislation item. And what it does is it basically ensures better rights for crime victims, people who are victims of crime. Right now, we do have some basic victims' rights in North Carolina, but unfortunately, they're not universally enforced and they're not very clear. So what this bill aims to do is it will improve the definitions of victims' rights. This applies to violent crimes. what it will also do is it will make sure that they are constitutional in nature, so they are co-equal with that of the accused. So our crime victims in North Carolina will have co-equal rights with that of the accused. It essentially does a couple of very simple things. One, if somebody gets out on bail, it's going to pick up the phone. They're going to say, hey, just so you know, this person's out. Second thing is, as the process goes on, it's going to make sure that the person understands the process, because one of the biggest problems we have is a lot of people who are victims of crime, they've already been through a lot, but they don't understand the process. They think that, oh, well, I've been through a crime, they're going to arrest the guy, it goes to court, and that's the end of it. But as you all know, because you're public officials, you know that it's a very complex process often that goes through the criminal justice system. So what this will do is it will make sure that people understand it and they're a part of it, if they wish to be. But right now, the burden is on the victim to pick up the phone and say, hey, I want to be a part of the process. And so in many cases, that's what happens. This is going to make it so that they have to say, this is what's about to happen. Would you like to be there? We have passed the House 98-17. So we're in the process of going through the Senate. Hopefully should be doing so soon. And towns and cities are making proclamations like this one, and it's extremely important because it tells the citizens in these towns and cities that their town stands with them and that they care about the victims of crime. They want them to, it's very important to people who have been through so much to know that the people that are closest to them in the community stand with them. So it's extremely important. It also sends a strong message to Raleigh to finish the job and get this through the Senate. And also, then it'll go to the voters next year. So I want to thank you for your consideration on this, and I want to thank all of you for considering crime victims' rights to be a priority in North Carolina, because it is, and a growing number of communities are joining this. Several that are actually very close to here. Indian Trail, one of them, actually was one of the first, and you guys are the first 6 or 7, and we've got a whole bunch more coming. It's powerful, and I want to thank all of you for this. And if you have any questions, I'll be here for a bit, but also, too, we have a website. It's ncmarcyslaw.us. And thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Matthew. I'd like to read a proclamation at this time. Whereas Marshall's Law for North Carolina advocacy organizations statewide are dedicated to guaranteeing victims' rights and providing a voice. Whereas Marshall's Law for North Carolina supporters agree victims should always be treated with fairness and respect throughout the criminal justice process, protected from the defendant, reasonably heard at public proceedings regarding their case, and given a voice through the process of the case. Whereas, per the Federal Bureau of Investigation, most recent crime in the United States report in 2013, a total of 33,700 North Carolinians were the victim of violent index crimes, including murder, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, larceny, motor vehicle theft, and arson. Whereas Marshall's Law for North Carolina will ensure that victims will receive the same rights that are afforded to criminals and have the rights to notification of their release, hearing appropriate restitution, and the right to speak during criminal proceedings. Whereas the victim's right is a nonpartisan, non-political issue, and Marshall's Law is a common sense approach to ensuring victims' rights. Now, I therefore, Bobby Kilgore, Mayor of the City of Monroe, do hereby proclaim and support HB 551, SB 595, Marshall's Law in the City of Monroe, and encourage all of our citizens to join in the commitment to protect the rights of the North Carolina crime victims. Witness here, I will have called here and set my hand and called the seal of the City of Monroe to be affixed this 18th day of July 2017. Matthew, I'd like to present this to you. And thank you so much for all you do. Thank you. And what you represent, Marshall's Law is certainly the thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys very much.
Okay, we'll go to the consent agenda this time.
Before we go to the consent agenda, Mayor, I'd like to pull off item number 9 for discussion.
Item 9,
Correct.
okay. Labor forces with Pike Electric for Energy Service Electric Division, okay. You want to go ahead and go through it and then come back to that?
Be fine.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, if you will, just go through all but 9.
Yes.
Consent agenda. The city council uses the consent agenda to consider items that are non-controversial and routine. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of the council. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a council member or citizen with the consent of council. The consent agenda contains the following items. Item 3, for the purpose of approving the change in start date of the annual grant payment to Griner Bio 1 from fiscal year 2019 to 2020. The grant was awarded on May 2nd, 2017. Item 4 is for the purpose of calling 3 public hearings to be held on August 15th. The first is to consider using the Community Development Block Grant funds for infrastructure improvements or a building reuse project. The second hearing is to consider the annexation of 17.6 acres located at the intersection of Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and Weddington Road. The third hearing is to consider rezoning property located at the intersection of Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and Weddington Road from R20 to Conditional District NEQ Martin Luther King and Weddington. Item 5 is a call for a hearing which will be held on September 5th and is to consider using development block grant funds for infrastructure improvements or building reuse project. Item 6 is for the purpose of adopting a capital project budget ordinance closing 10 project funds for fiscal year 2018 ranging in amounts from $5,100 to $2.5 million, the largest of which involves the natural gas expansion project fund. Item 7 is for the purpose of approving an increase for the project fund using 3 sources to support the hangar construction project in the amount of $1,760,000, awarding the construction project to K&D Construction in the amount of $1,516,200. A long-term lease with Arrowwood for the hangar was previously approved. Item 8 is for the purpose of awarding a contract to Pierce Manufacturing and Atlantic Emergency Solutions for $1,056,572 to purchase a Pierce aerial platform fire apparatus. Item 9 has been removed from consent. Item 10 is minutes and reports, which are lettered 10A through F. 10A is financial reports for May and June, and as a summary, the unsigned general fund balance is $2,804,221. There are 5 sets of minutes lettered 10B through E. Item 10F is summary of contracts awarded, change orders approved, and city manager settlement and claims. There are 51 contracts for the period totaling a little more than $754,000, and there were no claims settled for the period. Item 11 is for the purpose of accepting 2 North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality grants for the asset inventory and assessments and approving a budget ordinance in the amount of $150,000 for each of the 2 grants. Item 12 is for the purpose of approving the North Carolina Main Street Designation Annual Agreement. Item 13 is for the purpose of amending Chapter 95 Youth Protection to alter the curfew times by 1 hour earlier on all days as follows. 10 to 10 p.m. on any Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday until 6 a.m. of the following day, and 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. on any Friday and Saturday. Number 14 is for the purpose of approving the reallocation of unspent project funds of $53,000 to be used to install security cameras at 5 recreation centers and replace the pool slide at the Winchester Center. Item 15 is for the purpose of acquiring by donation of real property owned by Union Baptist Association of Union County located at 1744 Williams Road as part of the future Greenway connector between Monroe Aquatic Fitness Center and Park Williams Athletic Complex. Item 16 is for the purpose of approving sewer credit for Mr. Marbin totaling $678.67. Item 17 is for the purpose of approving the tax releases for the month of May and June in the amount of $587.04 and $11,733.33 respectively. And that concludes the summary of items placed on the consent agenda for your consideration.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Item 9
I pulled this off the consent agenda because this item has been heard at the General Services Committee and was also supposed to be heard at Public Enterprise, which met today, and I'm not sure if that actually happened or not. But the problem with items going to both committees, everybody gets to hear it except for two people, and one is the mayor and the other one is Councilmember Anderson because they're not a member of that committee. And sometimes things are important enough that we need to have everybody hear what's going on, and then we need their input, which is why I asked for it to be put to the council. If the underlying issue isn't addressed, reference to this contract, it can affect both the increase of electric rates and an impact on economic development. And the underlying issue here is that we seem to be having a high turnover in our linemen. And according to our staff, it's because of the pay rates. In the past year, we've heard several presentations from consultants on our pay ranges and scales. And while we need to make sure that we are fair to all our employees by providing fair compensation and benefits, we also must look at how funding or non-funding will impact our taxes, our electric rates, water, sewer, etc. So first, what I'd like to do is make a motion on the underlying issue on this contract, which is that the city manager get with our HR director and come up with some ways to see about fairly compensating our linemen. There's several ways I know that can happen. I know High Point has moved different classifications, so I know that can happen. And so I'm going to make the motion that the city manager and HR director address this issue because it is a very important issue and needs to be addressed, and we've let it probably go on too long. So I'm going to make that motion, and then the second motion, then we'll talk about the contract, but I want the city manager first to explain the contract. I don't know if you've heard it, Mr. Anderson,
no,
or if the mayor has, so I'll have the city manager explain that, and then we can vote on the contract. But my first motion is to have the city manager work with HR director.
Second. The contract involves Pike Electric for energy services to the electric division. The purpose was to award Pike Electric a contract for $1,035,250 to employ contract forces supporting the electric division for up to 1 year. And that's to augment, shortfall in staffing, in particular linemen.
All right, I have a motion for the to have the city manager work with HR director. Is there a second?
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Questions, discussions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that's not opposed. You'll take care of it. We'll take care of it.
All right, I guess we need to make a motion for that, for the approval of the contract.
that would be correct, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. I'm going to second that motion, and I'd just like to say thank you to Mayor Pro Tem Duncan. This item 9 is really something that should have been on the regular agenda to begin with, because for transparency across the board for all council members, we need to all be aware of what's going on. We all serve on different committees, and sometimes things roll out in a committee that the entire council needs to know about, so that we're all well informed. So thank you for doing that. And I second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none? Pass. Okay. Have a motion to approve consent items.
So moved.
Have a motion to have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. All right, regular agenda item 18, ordinance to declare certain property unfit to human habitation and demolition.
Good evening. Lisa Stywinter, Planning Director with the City of Monroe. The petition for ordinance to declare certain property unfit for human habitation and demolition located at 114 South Crawford Street was presented to City Council at their April 4th, 2017 meeting. Council voted to table the case until July 18th in meeting in order to allow Union County and the city to seek foreclosure for unpaid taxes and also allow Union County to work with a prospective buyer. Union County has completed the foreclosure process, and the subject property was posted for notice of sale on June 22nd. A prospective buyer came forward and is planning to restore the property to comply with the minimum housing ordinance. in order to utilize it for his or her primary residence. Union County is required to provide an opportunity for any upset bids for a minimum of 10 days. The upset bid timeframe has passed and no upset bids were received. So Union County will move forward in completing the sale process, and due to this, staff is recommending council table the case for 90 days, which would probably be October, so maybe until the November 14th council meeting, in order to provide the new property owner ample amount of time to repair the dwelling. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Move we approve the request.
Have a motion?
Second.
Any comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That'll be tabled. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Item 19, logo branding initiative. Steve, we'll hear you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. What we're going to present to you tonight is our rendition of what our future logo will look like for your approval. General Services Committee has seen this. A little bit about the process. We enlisted roughly just under 100 people as part of a stakeholder group earlier this year, made up of city employees, city committee members, and other folks from the public to talk about what Monroe means to them, what signifies Monroe, and the consultants. We have Mia here with Granite Sky Consultants. She'll be here to talk to you in a minute about the process. We gathered all the information from those meetings. They took all that information back and compiled a couple different logos. We narrowed that down, brought that to General Services, further fine-tuned that, took it back to General Services last month, and now we're before you. The purpose of the logo is to unify the city. So many departments have different logos, have different representations. So the purpose of this is twofold. One, to unify the city departments, but two, also give us a presence that's where you see the logo, it tells you something about Monroe, if that makes sense. So if somebody just sees, Councilman Anderson has the current logo with the sails on it, the past, present, and future of Monroe. So we would be replacing that with this new logo. So Mia, if you would talk a little through it, and then we'll unveil the logo for y'all to see and take any information.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. We did present to General Services last month, and the process is we met with a number of individuals with the city, like Pete said, and a couple of the council members one-on-one. And in those focus groups, what we realized is that were two things that kept being brought up time and again in every single meeting. That was the heritage of Monroe as a whole, the history of the town, the city, the area as a whole, the county included in that, and the agricultural part of that and how important that was. The second part of that was the aerospace and the airport and all that's lending in the future of where Monroe is going. So when we started developing the logo, we looked at several different components, and the one thing that kept coming back again were those two things. The further we got into it, that was the thing that we all kept coming back to. So when we developed the logo, I'm not sure where to put that. So this is the logo that we presented and went through General Services, and this would be the official city logo, and it's just Monroe, North Carolina. And so you see on the left hand, we took the M and we embellished it, and so you've got that blade of grass or wheat, however you interpret that, but that represents the agricultural part of it, and then the aerospace with the plane. And then the two lines over the M can be representative of either the fields, so that could be the rows in the fields, or it could be the runways. So your interpretation of that is how you see it. So it's fairly self-explanatory. It's not something that you have to say, well, what does that really mean? Because it's very it's self-explanatory. The tagline that we came up with would be where heartland meets high tech. So you've got the heritage and you've got the high tech part of it.
The logo is telling our story, so we don't have to, with
Explain
the
it.
flags, some of you might even not be aware that past, present, future represents the flag. You look at this, you look at with the tagline, and we're able to bill ourselves, and that tells our story a lot easier than us having to explain our story.
And one thing that we kept hearing as well is that everybody wanted something that they could salute, so to speak, and get behind and make it their brand, and something they'd be proud to wear and proud to use. And so we also have done logos that represent each of the different departments. And so this would be just an example of how the departments would use a logo. So if for the departments, when they have their own letterhead for their memorandums and stuff like that, this would go on there. It could also be adapted to Fleet Graphics. We have examples of what your shirts would be. And so whether it's in one color or in two colors. And then I've got one more just to...
It's more striking, and again, it tells the story for us. It'll help us in our overall branding, help us create an identity within the region, and even outside of the region. You know, I know Chris has his own things going with Monroe Union Economic Development, but this will help us be an identifier for what we are in our community. We did have several other options that we looked at. We also took this to our department heads at a department head meeting and further fine-tune it. And it was not unanimous, you know, and something like this, it's rarely going to be unanimous, but the majority of the department heads were totally on board with it. And the agriculture piece, you know, you all have been here for a long time. Monroe's agriculture is kind of dwindling, but everybody here feels the heritage of that and still has that as a huge part of our community.
And we chose these two colors. I guess these are more indicative of what the colors are. Sometimes when they're up there, it's really hard to see. But it is a strong blue. It's almost a navy blue. It's between a royal and a navy blue, and then a really bright high energy green. So they're strong colors. For two-color work where you don't want to do a full color piece, you've got, you know, the blue can be used as the logo, as the text color, and that's really important when you start talking about marketing the city.
And with this is step one. We will be redeveloping our website. Granite Sky is also doing that with us. We're a little behind because, you know,
this process.
Partially my fault, and this with our committee structure had to go a little bit. So that will be rolling out soon. And we also have a design guide. So each department, and hopefully as a city, will adopt this as a policy on how exactly it can be used. We started that process with the current logo. We never completed it. So it'll have specific guidelines of exactly where it will be, exactly what size. You know, you can't mutate it anyway to fit your department other than what's outlined in here. And it also in here talks about letterhead and business cards. So it's
and this will be developed digitally and provided to all the departments to use. So it won't be their version of what they think it should be. It'll be here. This is what you use.
And it'll be up to the department heads to police this and monitor it to ensure it's being used the correct way.
Are we incorporating North Carolina in those right there? I know we did on the first one.
In the official city logo, what we typically, in our experience, is this is the official logo would be Monroe, North Carolina. And so anytime it's any official document or anything, it would be used that. But it just depends on what it is. So if you use the tagline, it would just be City of Monroe, where Heartland meets High Tech. So you have either or version, and this is just the tagline version, and then this one is the official city logo. Oh, sorry.
And again, it would be depending on what it was being used for. If it was being used outside of the city of Monroe, then yeah, you're probably going to keep the North Carolina.
Right.
If you're using it,
more internal, right?
Locally and regionally, you know, we'll use that one. So we're here before you to, yes, you like it, you want to go with it. No, you don't like it, you want us to go back to the drawing board. We've had some good reactions. I think Mr. Jordan, whether he likes it or not, he can attest to. We showed a lady that was in the Public Enterprise Committee meeting the logo earlier, and she was a little excited about it. So we don't have this is what we're putting before you. We like it. We think it's good, but you guys have to make the final decision on it before we move forward.
Comments?
Well, I like the part about it being something that can be consistent across the board with all the departments. I think that's great.
It's really important. It's a big part of the brand consistency.
Okay. Any other comment? Do you have a motion?
Mayor, the comment I would make is that I know that this company and our staff, and as they said, many citizens participated in this, so it wasn't just internal. And two, that if we took a year or 10 years to come up with this, we probably never would have a consensus or 100% of the people to agree with that. And as Councilman Anderson has stated, we're in dire need of this consistency and within our city and within our departments, and we need something. And I personally like this, and so I'd like to make the motion that we adopt it.
All right, I have a motion.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that passed.
Great job.
Thank you all. And we'll transition this. We're in the process of producing a 30 to 45 second kind of infomercial. We'll plot out a schedule of unrolling and unveiling this as we move forward. And I just want to thank you all for the support. I know this is a difficult process and it's hard to get right, but I think we have something that we can be proud of and something that, like some other municipalities, is not going to get us into trouble, and it's something that we'll be able to use to market the city of Monroe. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good job, Pete.
Good job.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll do public comments, and we're going to go into closed session. So at this time, is anyone here who would like to address the council? I don't have anyone signed up. Hearing none, we'll go into, take a
Okay,
motion.
well, I'm going to move that we go into closed session pursuant to the General Statute, Section 143-318-11, to prevent the disclosure of information that's privileged or confidential pursuant to the law of North Carolina. Considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of General Statutes to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the city's attorney and the council, and to consider the qualifications, competence, performance, character, fitness, or to hear or investigate a complaint, charge, or grievance by or against an individual public officer or employee.
I have a motion. I have a second.
Second.
All in favor? We're going to closed session.